I didn't expect the rodeo to feel like the start of something. Usually it was just dust, noise, and the smell of fried dough, an excuse to drink cheap beer and watch men try to wrestle chaos into order. But as I parked my truck at the edge of the fairgrounds and caught the sight of the Ferris wheel spinning lazily against the late summer sky, I felt something in my chest shift. Maybe it was nostalgia, maybe restlessness. Either way, tonight was going to be different. I wasn't even supposed to come alone. My best friend Mason had texted earlier that he might skip. It had been a long week at work, he said, and maybe next time. I told him I'd go anyway. But I wasn't fooling anyone. If Mason wasn't here, the night felt incomplete. He'd been in my life for years, the kind of friend who stuck through every awkward phase, every bad haircut, every reckless decision. He was steady where I was restless, and I think that's why I always found myself looking for him in a crowd. He was 6 foot of calm confidence, the kind of guy who carried himself like he belonged anywhere. Meanwhile, I was the opposite. More at home sketching scenes in a notebook than riding bulls or shouting over a bar band. Still, Mason never made me feel less. With him, my edges didn't feel so sharp. And maybe that was the problem. Because lately I'd caught myself noticing things I shouldn't. Like the way his laugh broke free when he wasn't holding it back. Or the way his hand would brush mine when he passed me a drink, lingering just a second too long. Or maybe that was just me imagining it. I never said anything, of course. You don't risk a friendship like ours on a hunch. The rodeo grounds were buzzing when I stepped inside. Neon lights flickered over the stands, kids darted through the crowd with glow sticks, and the announcer's voice crackled over the speakers. I shoved my hands into my pockets, trying not to look like the guy who'd come alone. Then, just as I passed the ticket booth, I heard someone calling my name. "Thought you were gonna ditch me." I turned, and there he was, Mason, grinning at me like he always did when he knew he'd surprised me. My chest tightened, half relief, half something I couldn't name. He wore a denim jacket I'd seen 100 times, shoulders broad under the fading light. "Wouldn't be the same without you," I said too quickly. His smile widened, and I knew then, the night had already shifted. Mason fell into step beside me like he always did, easy and unhurried, like the world was something he had all figured out. I hated how much comfort I drew from that simple act, like his presence steadied the ground beneath my feet. "Figured you'd bail," I said, forcing a smirk. He nudged my shoulder with his. "And missed the chance to watch you yell at the bronc riders?" "Not a chance. I don't yell. You do. You get this look, like you're personally offended the horse didn't win." I laughed despite myself. That was the thing with Mason, he noticed everything, even the quirks I thought I kept hidden. It wasn't that he made fun of me, it was more like he collected little details, carried them quietly, and pulled them out when he wanted to make me laugh. We found seats along the dusty bleachers, close enough to smell the dirt and hay from the arena. Families packed the rows, kids dangling their legs while old men leaned forward, eyes sharp and practiced. The announcer's voice boomed, and a cowboy burst out of the chute, clinging to a bucking bronc with every muscle straining. The crowd erupted, but I was aware of something else. Mason's thigh brushing mine, his laugh warm against the roar of the crowd. We'd been friends since high school, thrown together by circumstance and held together by something harder to explain. I'd been the quiet kid who sketched during lunch. He was the guy who always knew the score of every game. But somehow we found each other. Late-night drives in his rusted pickup. Sitting on the hood, counting stars. Sharing silence in a way that didn't feel heavy. He was the first person I ever told about my mom leaving, and I was the one who knew about his fear of failing his dad's expectations. That was our history, unspoken loyalty. As the event carried on, I let myself study him in pieces. The way his jaw tightened when a rider hit the dirt. The way his hands moved when he gestured, broad, strong, calloused. My eyes lingered too long, and when he caught me looking, I darted away, pretending to focus on the arena. He didn't call me out, just smirked. "Hungry?" he asked once the intermission started. "Always. Funnel cake or nachos?" I raised an eyebrow. "You're asking me like you don't already know the answer." He chuckled. "Funnel cake. Powdered sugar all over your shirt. Classic." We ended up sharing one, tearing pieces with our fingers, brushing sugar dust off each other's sleeves. His hand grazed mine once, accident probably, but I felt it like a spark lodged in my chest. I pulled back too quickly, licking sugar from my fingers like nothing had happened. Later, as the evening cooled, gray clouds began to gather overhead. The announcer tried to keep the energy high, but everyone could feel it, the shift in the air, the electric tang of an oncoming storm. Mason glanced up. "Should have brought jackets." "You mean you should have brought one? I told you it might rain." He grinned. "And here I was counting on you to share yours." You'd stretch mine out in about 2 seconds. Guess you'll just have to keep me warm then? He said it casually with that teasing edge he always used. But the words lodged somewhere deeper in me. I laughed it off, but my pulse was hammering. The first drops started to fall, dotting the dust. People pulled out ponchos and hurried toward shelter. Mason and I looked at each other and without a word, made a run for the covered barns at the edge of the grounds. We ducked inside, rain pounding on the tin roof, the air thick with hay and the earthy smell of horses. I was breathless, half from running, half from the closeness. He shook his head, water dripping from his hair, grinning like a kid. And in that cramped, dim barn with thunder rolling outside, I realized something was changing. The barn wasn't exactly empty. A few rodeo workers leaned against the far wall, talking quietly, but it felt like Mason and I had been cut off from the rest of the world. The rain hammered the tin roof so hard it drowned out the announcer's voice, leaving only the rumble of thunder and the soft shuffling of horses in their stalls. I shoved my hands into my jacket pockets, pretending to study the storm. Truth was, I couldn't stop noticing the way Mason leaned against the wooden post, his shirt clinging to his shoulders, damp from the run. My throat felt dry. "Looks like we're stuck," he said casually. He wasn't even bothered, just folded his arms and gave me that grin, half amusement, half challenge. "Yeah. Should pass in, 20 minutes? Or an hour?" He tilted his head. "You in a hurry to leave?" I shook my head. Too quickly. "No. Not really." Silence stretched between us, broken only by the rain. I caught myself stealing glances, at the way his wet hair curled at the edges, at the relaxed way he stood like he owned the space. I hated myself for noticing so much. Or maybe I didn't hate it, I just hated that it meant more to me than it should. He broke the silence first. "Remember that storm at the lake?" I blinked. "The camping trip?" "Yeah. You were convinced the tent was gonna blow away." "It almost did." He laughed, full and unrestrained, and something warm bloomed in my chest. "You made me sit there holding the pole down for an hour while you swore we were gonna die." I wasn't swearing. I was preparing. "Preparing?" he echoed, shaking his head. His eyes softened as they landed on me, and for a second, the teasing faded into something else. Something that made my breath catch. I looked away, heat rising in my neck. My thoughts tangled. Don't read into it. Don't ruin this. But the universe had other plans. A flash of lightning cut across the sky, followed by a crack of thunder that rattled the barn. The horses stamped and snorted nervously, and Mason shifted closer without thinking, shoulder brushing mine. I froze. His warmth seeped through the thin fabric of my sleeve. He didn't move away. "You good?" he asked, his voice low. "Yeah," I lied. My pulse was racing. Another boom of thunder shook the rafters, and without meaning to, I flinched. He noticed. Of course he did. Mason always noticed. "You hate storms, don't you?" His tone was gentle now. "I don't hate them. Just, they get under my skin." He gave me a small, lopsided smile, and before I could think, his arm slid around my shoulders. A casual gesture meant to steady me. But it wasn't casual to me. Not when every nerve in my body lit up at the contact. I should have pulled away. I didn't. Instead, I leaned into it just slightly, just enough to feel the weight of him against me. The rain kept pounding, but all I could hear was my heartbeat, loud and unsteady. "Better?" he asked. I swallowed hard. "Yeah, better." He squeezed my shoulder once like it was nothing and kept it there. Like it was the most natural thing in the world. I wanted to stay in that moment forever, but my mind wouldn't let me. "This is dangerous. This is friendship. Don't mess it up." Every warning bell screamed, but they were drowned out by the quiet truth. I didn't want distance. I wanted more. And then, as if he was determined to make it harder, Mason leaned down slightly, his voice brushing close to my ear. "You know, you're braver than you think." The words landed heavier than he probably meant. My chest ached. I wanted to ask him what he meant, if he knew what I was feeling, if maybe, just maybe, he felt it too. But fear clamped my mouth shut. So instead I tried for humor. "Brave enough to sit through this storm without embarrassing myself?" He chuckled softly, his breath warm against my skin. "Brave enough to put up with me all these years?" My throat tightened. He said it lightly, but his eyes, when they met mine, they weren't light at all. They lingered, searching, almost vulnerable. And for a heartbeat, the air between us shifted. The moment cracked when one of the rodeo workers shouted from across the barn, breaking whatever had started to form. Mason pulled back slightly, his arm slipping away, leaving my side colder than before. I forced a laugh, trying to shake it off. Guess the storm's not the only loud thing in here. But inside I was reeling. His touch, his words, that look, it all tangled into a knot I couldn't untie. And the worst part? I wasn't sure I wanted to untie it. The storm didn't let up. If anything, it deepened, the rain falling in heavy sheets that blurred the fairgrounds outside the barn. Every time thunder cracked, it felt like the air vibrated inside my chest. The workers across the way had retreated deeper into their corner, leaving Mason and me in our own little pocket of space. He leaned against the wooden beam, watching the rain, arms folded like he wasn't fazed at all. I sat on an overturned bucket, restless, fidgeting with my fingers. My body still hummed with the memory of his arm around me. I told myself not to stare, but my eyes betrayed me. The way his damp shirt clung to his shoulders, the way his jaw tightened in thought, it was too much. Every detail carved itself into me, 1,000 reasons why I couldn't keep pretending this was just friendship. He caught me looking again. "You're quiet," he said. I shrugged. "Guess I don't have much to say." "Since when?" His mouth quirked into a grin. "You usually overthink out loud." I rolled my eyes. Maybe I'm evolving. But the truth was I was too afraid to speak. Afraid my voice would give me away, that the storm outside wasn't the only one breaking loose tonight. Mason studied me for a moment longer, then looked back toward the open barn doors. His voice was quieter when he spoke again. "You know, it's not so bad, getting stuck here." "Could be worse," I said. "Yeah." He glanced at me again. "Could be stuck with someone else." That hit harder than it should have. My chest ached with the weight of everything unsaid, and for a moment, the words were right there on my tongue. But fear pulled them back the way it always did. So I laughed, forced and thin. "Wow. High praise." He shook his head, smiling softly. "You know what I mean." The silence stretched again, heavier this time. Rain hammered, thunder rolled, and in that dim light, the truth pressed against me like a hand on my chest. "Say it. Just say it." But instead I said nothing. It was Mason who broke first. "You've been different lately," he said suddenly. His voice wasn't accusing, just thoughtful. "I don't know, you seem distant. Like you're holding something back." My breath caught. "I'm not." He tilted his head, eyes steady on me. "You are. I know you." I swallowed hard. My whole body wanted to retreat, to deflect, but his gaze pinned me in place. Mason never pushed, not really. He let people come to him. Which made the fact that he was pushing now mean something. I tried for humor again. "Maybe I'm just getting mysterious in my old age." "Or," he said, stepping closer, "maybe you're scared of something." The words cut through me. I looked away, staring at the puddles forming on the barn floor. My throat was tight. He crouched slightly so he could catch my eyes. His voice softened. "What is it?" For a long moment I just sat there, the storm raging outside and inside me. I could lie. I could push it down again, bury it under jokes and half-truths. But I was so tired of carrying it alone. So I let the words slip, barely more than a whisper. "It's you." The silence that followed was deafening. My heart pounded so hard I thought he'd hear it. Mason's brows drew together slightly. "Me?" I nodded, still not meeting his eyes. I don't know when it started. I just know that it's there. And I've been trying to pretend it's not because this," I gestured between us, my hand trembling. "This friendship means everything to me. And I didn't want to risk it. But I can't keep acting like I don't feel more than I should." There it was. Out in the open. The secret I'd carried so long it had shaped itself into part of me. My chest felt raw, exposed. Mason didn't say anything at first. I finally forced myself to look up, bracing for confusion, maybe even rejection. But what I saw wasn't either. It was something else. Something unguarded. He exhaled slowly, running a hand through his damp hair. "God. I'm sorry," I blurted. "I shouldn't have said anything. Just forget it, okay? Forget I don't." His voice was sharp, more than I'd ever heard from him. He stepped closer, and suddenly he was right in front of me, eyes locked on mine. "Don't take it back." I froze. "Mason." He laughed softly, but it was shaky, nervous in a way I'd never seen from him. "You think you're the only one who's been holding something in?" The words hit me like another crack of thunder. "What do you mean?" He swallowed, his jaw working. "I've been trying so damn hard not to ruin this. Not to ruin us. But every time you smile or look at me like that," he shook his head, letting out a breath. "It kills me not to say it." I stared, my whole body buzzing. "Say what?" "That I feel the same way," he said simply. The barn seemed to tilt around me. For a moment I couldn't breathe. "You, what?" He chuckled nervously, rubbing the back of his neck. "Yeah. I'm terrible at this, huh? Should have said something months ago. Maybe years. His eyes softened. Guess I was just as scared as you. I couldn't think, couldn't move. All I could do was feel the weight of his words settle into me, warming places I thought would always stay cold. You're serious, I whispered. Dead serious. Something in me cracked open then, all the fear and doubt spilling out, replaced by this overwhelming flood of relief, of wanting, of hope. I stood slowly, my legs unsteady. Mason didn't move away. If anything, he stepped closer, so close I could see the raindrops clinging to his lashes. For a long heartbeat, we just looked at each other, the air between us charged, trembling. His hand lifted, hesitant, then brushed against mine. A simple touch, but it felt monumental. I didn't pull away. Neither did he. Instead, our fingers laced together, tentative but certain. The storm outside crashed again, but inside, everything stilled. My breath shook as I whispered, "So, what happens now?" Mason smiled, small and earnest. "Now, we stop pretending." His other hand came up, cupping the side of my face, thumb brushing lightly against my cheek. I leaned into it instinctively, my eyes fluttering shut. And then, finally, his lips met mine. It wasn't rushed or desperate. It was careful, like we were both afraid the moment might shatter if we moved too quickly. But beneath that caution was a hunger, years of unsaid words and stifled feelings finally finding their way out. When we pulled back, breathless, I pressed my forehead to his, tears stinging the corners of my eyes. "You have no idea how long I've wanted that." He grinned softly, his hand still holding mine. "Yeah, I think I do." And just like that, the storm didn't seem so heavy anymore. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The kiss hung between us, fragile and brilliant, like lightning flashing across a dark sky. My chest was tight, not with fear anymore, but with something warmer, heavier, like my heart had finally slipped into the place it belonged. Mason kept his forehead pressed against mine, his hand still cupping my cheek. His thumb traced absent circles along my skin, like he wasn't ready to let go, and truthfully neither was I. "You okay?" he whispered, his breath mixing with mine. "Better than okay," I said, the words spilling out before I could second-guess them. My voice was shaky but honest. He smiled, and I felt it more than saw it, the curve of his lips brushing mine as if the universe couldn't stand to keep us apart anymore. I laughed softly, nerves finally breaking, and Mason chuckled too, his chest rumbling against me. "God?" he muttered. "We're idiots, aren't we?" "Complete idiots," I agreed. He leaned back just enough to meet my eyes, his expression softer than I'd ever seen it. "All that time pretending. And all that time I thought you couldn't possibly," I trailed off, shaking my head. "Guess we're both bad at reading signs. Or we were too scared to look." His hand slid down, finding mine again. Our fingers wove together easily, like they'd been waiting for this. The storm outside had eased into steady rain, softer now, but I hardly noticed. The world beyond this barn felt irrelevant. For years I'd imagined what it might be like to have Mason this close, to feel his hand in mine without an excuse, to know, really know, that he wanted it too. And now that it was real, it felt both impossible and inevitable. "So," I said, the word dragging out nervously. "What does this mean? For us?" He tilted his head, pretending to think. "Well, I figure it means you're stuck with me for a lot more funnel cakes." I laughed, nudging him with my shoulder. "I'm serious." "I am too," he said, grinning. But then his smile softened again, his voice quieter. "It means we stop hiding. It means we figure it out, together. Even if it's messy." His certainty steadied me. I'd been bracing for doubt, hesitation, maybe even regret, but instead I found the same hope that had been blooming inside me. "There'll be people who don't get it," I said. "Friends, family. Let 'em." His tone was firm, protective in a way that made my chest ache. "They don't get a vote in this. I want you. That's what matters." Heat rushed to my face, not from embarrassment but from the sheer weight of hearing him say it out loud. "You make it sound so easy." He grinned crookedly. "It is easy. Complicated, sure, but easy. 'Cause it's us." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so I did both, pressing my face into his chest to hide the tears threatening to spill over. His arms wrapped around me instantly, holding me tight, grounding me. "I can't believe this is real," I admitted into the fabric of his shirt. "Believe it?" he murmured, pressing a kiss into the top of my damp hair. "You're mine now. Finally." The word finally echoed inside me, a promise, a claim, and a comfort all at once. When I pulled back, his eyes were shining in a way I'd never seen before. Open, unguarded, just like mine probably were. I couldn't stop smiling even through the wetness on my cheeks. "So what's next?" I asked. He smirked, leaning down to kiss me again, quick and playful this time. Next, we get out of this barn before someone writes a country song about us. I laughed so hard I nearly doubled over, and he laughed with me, tugging me close again as though he couldn't stop touching me now that the dam had finally broken. And maybe he couldn't. Maybe neither of us could. The rain tapered off by the time we finally stepped back into the fairgrounds. The world smelled of wet earth and fried food, the air crisp and clean, like the storm had rinsed everything new. Neon lights flickered against puddles, painting the ground in reds and blues. The rodeo announcer's voice had gone quiet, the crowd had mostly scattered. It felt like the world had paused just for us. Mason's hand brushed mine as we walked, then hooked our fingers together like it was nothing. Like we'd been doing this forever. My heart skipped anyway. You know, he said, squeezing lightly, I think storms might be good luck. I raised an eyebrow. Good luck? You nearly got trampled trying to get in here before it hit. Yeah, but it ended with you kissing me. That's a win. His grin was wide, unashamed, and my cheeks heated instantly. You kissed me, I muttered, though the memory sent a rush of warmth through me. He chuckled. Guess we'll argue about that one for the rest of our lives. The words hung there, unintentional but heavy with meaning. The rest of our lives. I wanted to hold on to them, carve them into stone so I'd never forget how casually he said them, like he already saw us stretching into the future. We wandered past the food stands, most of them shuttered, and Mason tugged me toward the Ferris wheel still spinning slowly in the drizzle. The operator looked half asleep but waved us on without question. We climbed into the damp seat and the ride jolted to life. From the top, the fairgrounds spread out below us, quiet, glistening, beautiful in its own strange way. I glanced at Mason. His profile glowed under the colored lights, sharp edges softened by the night. He turned, catching me staring, and didn't look away. You're doing it again, he said softly. Doing what? Looking at me like you're trying to memorize something. I hesitated, then answered honestly. Maybe I am. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise then warmth. He reached over, pulling my hand into his lap, thumb brushing across my knuckles. Don't worry. I'm not going anywhere. The words settled deep, a steady anchor against the chaos of everything else. I didn't realize how badly I needed to hear them until now. We sat like that for the rest of the ride, the silence easy, filled with unspoken promises. When the wheel finally slowed and stopped, Mason tugged me up and back onto the damp grass. Hey, he said suddenly, stopping under the glow of a flickering light. His tone had shifted, serious, almost hesitant. Yeah. He rubbed the back of his neck, that rare nervousness showing again. I know we just figured this out tonight, but I don't want this to be a one-night thing. I don't want to go back to pretending tomorrow. My throat tightened. Neither do I. Relief softened his shoulders and he stepped closer, pressing his forehead to mine. Good. 'Cause I've waited too damn long for this. I smiled, my chest aching in the best way. So have I. We stood there, wrapped in the hum of the fairgrounds and the lingering scent of rain, until Mason finally pulled back just enough to grin at me. All right, he said, tugging at my hand. First order of business as your new boyfriend, more funnel cake. Non-negotiable. I laughed, shaking my head. You're insufferable. Yeah, but now you're stuck with me. Guess I am, I said, and this time there was no hesitation, no fear. Just certainty. We walked back across the grounds hand in hand, past the shuttered stands and glowing rides, our reflections stretching together in the puddles at our feet. The night felt like an ending, yes, but also the clearest kind of beginning. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of what came next. With Mason's hand in mine, I couldn't wait to find out.